Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Amber Gunst, and I'm the CEO of Austin Technology Council. We're so glad to have you join us today. We are so grateful to Insperity, who have been working with us and partnering with us on the virtual roundtables for the last few Thursdays. And we are also very grateful to Starleaf, who has been a wonderful partner to ATC in helping us provide this platform to be able to use this. We have a great conversation today titled, it's been a long week, titled Driving Change Through Crisis in 2020. And I think with everything that's going on and all of the change that keeps going on every single week, this is a very timely discussion to have. Once again, we are going to be taking questions on Slido. And the code for Slido this week is 4708. Once again, that's 4708. And I personally like to use my phone. So if you have that, we already have some questions on Slido. So let's make sure that we're continuing to utilize that, bring some great questions up, and have a great expert that can answer those questions today. But to kick it off, I want to introduce Robert Hitu, who is with Insperity here in Austin and is a great employee for the company.
Hey, Amber, your audio cut out there, but if you pass it over to me, I'll take over. Well, thank you so much for the introduction and welcome, everybody. As Amber mentioned, my name is Robert Hitu, and I'm a business performance advisor with Insperity. Prior to joining Insperity, I spent time in the CPG and the tech industry, where I most recently worked for Lyft, managing supply development in Florida. For those of you who may not be familiar with Insperity, we're a leading provider of premium and comprehensive HR solutions nationwide. We actually just celebrated our 34th anniversary and have helped thousands of small and medium-sized businesses across the country stabilize costs, maximize productivity, minimize risks, while providing their employees access to some great employee benefits. Building great company culture, employee engagement, and employee experience are at the heart of everything we do for our clients. At this unprecedented time, you can imagine how critical the support we can offer our clients will be to their survival and the jobs of their employees. I love that Amber called it a conversation, because today we have a fantastic presentation, but I like the calling it a conversation, because it really is, and an even better presenter for you today. Beth Sanders is a performance specialist with Insperity. Beth is an excellent example of the dedicated staff that Insperity provides our clients to deal with issues such as the one we're discussing today, which is driving and managing change, specifically in a pandemic. Beth, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much, Robert. I'm sure you all are experiencing the same thing I'm experiencing now. We don't have the same day twice. So let's talk about driving change in crisis. Every business needs strong leadership, no doubt, especially in the times of crisis. As we adapt to this global COVID-19 pandemic, leaders are faced with a completely unfamiliar business landscape. And I'm sure you're feeling that as well. And you're likely unprepared to handle. None of us expected this. To maintain effectiveness, organizations will need to quickly upskill their leaders, either because they're shifting focus or forced to operate with a leaner workforce. It's critical right now that businesses learn to operate with a new way of thinking and also have the ability to lead others and provide productive feedback so everyone can learn and grow while maintaining positive morale. You know, we get it. We know how you're feeling. We understand. Everybody's scrambling. It's all new to us, and it feels like our hair is on fire. Hopefully today we can help put that fire out at least a little bit. So if you'll hang with me, we're going to talk about driving change in crisis, as you know. During our time today, you will learn valuable information to develop yourself as leaders, to empower your employees, and to tap into and learn new skills so your organization can begin reaping the rewards of a resilient culture. You'll learn about ideas to infuse success through relationship today. We're going to highlight some of the great things, and I'm also going to hone in on some of the strife and struggle that you may be feeling right now. One thing I want you to do is keep in mind that we're talking about humans here, and human solutions cannot be engineered, so to speak. We're not here today to walk into your life, provide a solution, and then walk out. We're all companies made up of humans, and we're not attempting to fix a social problem, but rather to have you think deeper about bringing people at all levels in your organization together so that we can solve problems by involving the people around us, because we all want to be truly successful, not just now in times of crisis, but always. So as we spend some time together, think about not only your role in the business of change and crisis, but also before this and what you had planned for and after this passes. Think about reactions and resistance, not just of yourself, but of your employees. What are their personal needs during this change, during crisis? This is different from person to person, depending. You've got a lot of different behavioral styles within your organization. So we're going to talk about how to regain control and what is our plan to accelerate in that way as well. Okay, so if you think about the people in your organization and you think about what's going on at the moment. Let the slide build a little bit. Think back to November of 2019, maybe December or January, prior to this COVID crisis. You might be surprised to learn the answer to this question. What percentage of non-crisis workplace change initiatives are successful? So pre-COVID-19, what percentage do you think are successful? Give you a minute to think about that. It's actually only 30% of workplace change initiatives that are successful. Therefore, if you think about it, what does that leave? 70% of workplace change initiatives in normal times fail. That is, they don't produce the desired results that we're looking for. This figure is widely reported in business and scholarly publications as well. So based on your experience with workplace change, think about your organization in 2019. Would you agree with that statistic? Why do you think so many change initiatives fail? Why is that? So think for a minute about your organizations and some of the great things that have happened where you've really succeeded. And think about some of the changes that you've brought out that have failed. Some of the reasons you might be thinking are, employees don't understand the need or rationale for change. Managers may not communicate clear expectations. They don't gain the buy-in or support when they don't do that from their team members. As well, employees aren't always held accountable, and therefore they go back to the same old familiar way of doing things, right? I think we've all experienced that. And we as managers and leaders and team leaders and owners fail to use new approaches, sometimes ourselves. We get comfortable with what we've always done. So we don't adequately model these new skills. And employees also, they may lack the skills as well that are necessary to be successful with new processes and procedures. So if you think about it, this 30% is without a crisis, right? So while many of us are having to spend time focusing on the logistics and the implementation of processes and the financial issues that are surrounding you, the legal needs that are surrounding you right now, we don't spend enough time and energies, even pre-COVID, on the human element. So one reason I think is that we're not quite so sure or confident in how to do this. Often we don't see the value of engaging employees about what's happening. We may rely on logic, and technological issues that come up. We rely on logic to gain employee commitment, and we often eschew the need to respond to emotions. So we're going to talk about that today, about emotions. So why do 70% fail? This is not a what question, but it's a how answer. So our objective now is to enable ourselves as leaders and our employees to successfully implement workplace change. We can't just talk about what to do. We have to understand how to implement change in the workplace so that you can avoid the problems that plague 70% of failed change initiatives in normal times. To do this, we have to make sure employees understand the need and the rationale behind it. So as managers, I'm asking you to really take it up a notch and think about communicating even clearer expectations now to gain buy-in or support of your team members. Especially in crises, we see employees aren't held accountable, and therefore they don't know their expectations. So if managers fail to understand new approaches themselves or don't model the new skills, it's really difficult. Okay, so here is a scary statistic, and you may have already seen this when we sent out information on this session. We just spoke about pre-COVID-19, right? And how during a crisis is all the more imperative that you drive successful change. According to FEMA, 40% of businesses fail. They don't reopen following a disaster. And then you fast forward a year, from now, 25% may fail in the year after. We've looked at many reasons. Think about that. This really just remarkable. But we've looked at a lot of reasons why change initiatives tend to fail with employees on the human side. The chances of failure are compounded during crisis. So we talked about 70% of initiatives failing. When those initiatives fail, your organization doesn't fail, right? We're now talking about organizations that close their doors at 40%. So a 70% failure with initiatives doesn't mean close the doors. Pandemic, crisis, 40% businesses close their doors statistically. In most cases, initiatives fail not because leaders don't know what to do during crisis, but it's really because they aren't skilled in how to implement it, as we said before. So to avert crisis in your business, what do? Well, it's imperative that you think about how you're going to plan to make it through this COVID-19 crisis. You may have a great business continuity plan, right? That's one of the things I get asked about often is, well, let's pull out that business continuity plan, or Beth, could you help us make a business continuity plan? And I don't want you to confuse business continuity plans with disaster recovery plans. Business continuity plans are sometimes referred to as disaster recovery plans, but the two have a lot in common. And so if you've got that disaster recovery plan, didn't have it out there, we're working on those now in real time. And the disaster recovery plan will orient your business towards recovery following a disaster and mitigating negative consequences, obviously. In contrast, a business continuity plan focuses on creating a plan of action that focuses on preventing negative consequences in a disaster, like a hurricane, a tornado, things like that. This is something different than we've ever experienced. It certainly helps if you have a pre-existing business continuity plan in place. This disaster may actually provide a draft for you to work from in the future, because we're all in the moment going through recovery together. Disaster recovery is different. Take a minute and absorb that. No one would have crossed the ocean if he could have gotten off the ship in the storm. I think a lot of us are feeling that way. Being able to communicate to your employees what's going on is so important right now. Success equals knowledge and sharing it with your employees. Staying home now, this curve that you see in front of you was remarkable to me. And it reminded me that staying home right now makes a huge impact. Part of the advantage of an individual action, removing one single infection, is not necessarily that person is that person is not out there to infect tomorrow another person. So this is the power of one person staying at home. Thought it was quite amazing, because one person staying at home now, that infection may happen later, in a couple of weeks. And when it does, when we do go back out, there'll be more immunity out there. At some point, at least some of the newly infected people around us will build that immunity, or will have recovered. There's some amazing information coming out right now about antibodies and being able to donate plasma for people to help us to recover. And so the power of one, and sharing with our employees the power that one of us has to flatten this curve, I thought was amazing. So one infected person in turn will infect fewer. One infected person staying home in turn will infect fewer people, and so on. So effectively, each of us can choose to reduce the number of people out there in the world that would infect others. So if we don't see ourselves and we don't share this with our employees, we think everybody knows this. You watch the news, but they don't, and we don't. I think many of you have probably had the experience of going out and seeing people with their entire family in the grocery store. So talking and getting in the know with what your people are doing, and how one person has the power to potentially affect and stop the spread. And that's related to what we're talking about. So Keep that in your brain for just a few minutes. We'll come back to it. So crisis, what's crisis? Well, we all can clearly define what a crisis is now. A crisis is a time of intense difficulty, trouble, or danger. The current economic crisis we're experiencing because of COVID-19. A time when a difficult or important decision must be made. A crisis point of history. And then look at this last point, the turning point of a disease when an important change takes place, indicating what? Recovery or death. Y'all, we are clearly at a tipping point right now where organizations are more likely to weather a storm and emerge stronger if leaders avoid oversimplifying the situation. And instead, they allow a gradual understanding to emerge, to be tested in real time, in action. What I'm asking you to do is communicate and communicate again. I'm sure you've all heard that clear is kind and unclear is unkind. Right? I learned from Brene Brown that organizations and people who live their values are never silent about hard things. In case studies of businesses in crisis, managers and employees at every level have learned life-changing lessons that can be used in all industries to improve managers' effectiveness and companies' competitiveness in turbulent business environments. Resolution has evolved in the past from daily decisions that you're making now, the reactions that you have now to decisions, and tapping in to the contributors for creative solutions. In other words, what I'm saying is a multitude of counselors you need right now. Bottom line, tap into your employees. To focus on driving change in crisis, that means accelerating the process of implementing change by helping your team members accept and even embrace change more quickly. And in that process, we want to see you create an agile work environment where team members are more open to change because they feel involved in the change. Keep in mind that it's important to note that we're not talking about forcing people to change, but rather we're talking about engaging employees and customers, right? Both employees and customers by helping them see new possibilities. Here's a simple start, okay? I don't know what you've thought about and what you've started to encourage in your employees, but here's an idea. There's a lot of ideas out there, many of them. Here's just one. Focus on the 3 C's. I thought this was great. It might even be 4 C's if we were talking about cash today, right? My hope is that you are getting your loans, keeping your employees. Small businesses right now are in an uphill battle, but if you can come up with what your focus is, here's a great example. Focus on your colleagues. That means talk to your team, steady and calm their nerves. The goal is to keep your employees, keep the relationship with your employees if there's a layoff going on, but keep them close to you. Talk about implications of the virus. Talk about the power of one that I just shared with you. Talk about the right habits, the clean environment, workers at home and workers at the office. Look at the second C, talk to your customers. I had a friend tell me yesterday that he talked to 85% of 10 of his customers. He just reached out and called them. So get close to your customers, the top 10, spend 10 minutes with each one of them. And then the next day, do that with the next 10 on your list. And then this can permeate throughout the organization. What's important to your customer is keeping them up. Find out what's important to your customer. Find out what's keeping them up at night. How can you help your customers? Ask those open-ended questions. You're just checking in to see how they're doing, your employees as well. You may only reach, 85% like my friend did. You may only reach less. You may be leaving messages for customers. The attempt that you make is what makes a difference to your customers. Think about, how you're going to communicate changes as well. That last one, communication. Get ahead of the communication. Hopefully you all are already doing this. You think about the press releases that need to go out. What's going to happen between now, the next 2 weeks, or the next 90 days that you need to get ahead of the curve on? What needs to be that statement on your website? How are you mitigating the risk that's still coming? By communicating and getting ahead of that communication, talk with your external stakeholders, get ahead of the curve. So this was just one idea, just to kind of stimulate your thinking of where you are with your business. A few questions for you here, all right, for you to think about. So what are the best practices or tips for implementing workplace change during the COVID-19 crisis? And how are you going to succeed? How are you going to continue to succeed in this time of change? What's going to be your edge? The goal here is to survive, to stay open, reach out to suppliers, to landlords, do what you need to do. I get that. I want to see you keep the DNA of your business intact. Brainstorm together to survive and stay alive. Go ahead and get that grant money and then move on to get the human component back and moving. Remember, some of the best ideas come from people employed in the company, as I said before. Ideas for you and ideas for you to help your organization and the organizations that you serve stay in business. We realize this isn't just about your organization. It's about your customers' organizations for some of you as well. There's some great ideas out there to stay afloat. Just listening and watching the news and tapping into some resources myself right now, I've heard some really neat things, and I'm sure you have too. But I want you to ask yourself this: how will people think of you first when this crisis is over? How can you stay top of mind to your customer? How do you sell yourself? How do you sell yourself right now? I've heard so much. I've heard of gyms leasing out equipment to members, doing Peloton type lessons for members. Get creative. I have a daughter on a swim team. They closed our pool. We can't swim right now, but she is doing virtual dry land practices with her whole team. We've got to get creative right now to keep people tapped in. You've got to have access to members and customers in a different way now. Like the swim team doing virtual dry land exercises. Some people are going to their landlords and asking for extensions. Ask the questions. If you've got questions, should we be giving out gift cards? What should we be doing? Gift cards are tough sales. Might not be such a great idea, but starting to ship things at 50% off, maybe. And this is good advice that I've just heard. A few other things that I heard were, maybe you teach your customers how to become the best. If you're a bakery, you teach them how to become the best baker. Teach them how to program. What are some things that you can teach virtually right now and keep your customers there with you? And also, what can your employees learn to take them to the other side, to come out better than when we started this, to be more educated, to have more skills? Go back to customers and make customers and employees, make them a phenomenal offer to support your business. There are some corporate entities out there that only sold to corporate entities. And so they've lost that customer. And so they're getting in touch with one another and making deals to keep each other's business in place by sending, things to their customers' homes during business hours and their employees' homes. So, layoffs are happening. I know it. But try your best to keep that profile of your employees intact and your customers. Keep your employees paid. If you're, looking for anything that can help you get to the other end of this on COVID-19, make sure you find it. It's a game changer. We're all feeling the effects. It's been an accelerant for remote working as well as online education. It's harder to figure out, but we can all do this. It's likely that the shift will impact morale and productivity and mental health of workers throughout the globe for quite a while, and we need to prepare for it. Firms that choose to capitalize and answer these questions and reach out to their employees for ideas. Your employees are the ones that you need to ask. Your customers you need to ask. These are the ones that you need to ask if you want to know, right? Okay, so what's resilience? Well, resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties and toughness. It's an actual toughness, right? It's often remarkable, the resilience of so many American institutions. Would you agree? The ability of a substance or object to spring back into shape, which is what we're trying to do now. So anxiety is a catalyst. Would you agree? It's a gateway for resilience. Think back to the SARS epidemic. Think back to 2008, the financial epidemic or crises. There's so many things that came out of that we enjoy today. The anxiety for traveling, so many things have stopped. But do y'all remember Alibaba? Are you aware of the multi-billion-dollar e-commerce company? That came out of the SARS pandemic. The financial crisis of '08 brought us Airbnb and Uber. So it's going to be amazing to think about what COVID-19 brings us. Some of the changes are direct and short term. We'll get through this, but some are going to be long term, especially with digital disruption. Something for us to think about that's going to shape businesses for decades, right? The psychological impact of all of it. Think about your resilience. What would kill your company? we do an exercise, we utilize an exercise that's called Kill the Company. And I will have clients think about, what lurks in the shadows to take you down. We've got this great equalizer now in COVID-19. Everyone is feeling the same and reacting and looking at the world and the work world through a different lens. How will you? What makes change, do you think, more accepted right now? And what do you think makes your employees resist? Resistance is actually an indirect expression of concern. So if you've got people refusing to jump on board or do things in such a way to help move the business forward, think about resistance. Encourage the full expression of it and the concerns that your employees may have. I want you to first identify in your own mind what form resistance may be taking if you have it, and what are your frustrations yourself. How are you holding back? Historically, resistance to change has been seen as a power struggle between leaders and employees. Recent research has revealed that employees that appear to resist change may actually be raising objections as a sign of engagement. I thought that was fascinating. People have legitimate concerns right now, and when those are considered and factored in, they could actually enhance and improve the change just by talking about the concerns. It helps to propel your business in a different direction. Think about engaging your people and seeking them out, talking about their concerns, not reacting to them, discussing them to increase the likelihood that change during this crisis will be successful. Personal feelings are a big part of surviving this change for employees. Being heard is huge for calming anxiety. Being more flexible and giving grace are as well. Oh, there may be a lot of anxiety right now. Right, so we'll continue to talk about the confusion that is out there that anxiety can cause, and make change and keep us from making the changes that we need to. I'd like to share with you next an idea, a trend for where your responsibility is to successfully implement workplace change. Even change that you might not agree with. If you have concerns or feedback, you'll want to address those with your manager for sure, or we hope that employees will address those with managers and feel that they're responsible for the change as well. So if you think about change, when change is accepted, how do you drive change and get it accepted? Have you thought about how you do that? When you go out and you've got a major change, how do you get acceptance from people to come alongside you? Some of us are really good at talking others into doing things. We can, sell ice cubes to Eskimos, so to speak. We're salesmen, and we can convince others to come alongside and join us. But some of us, about 50% of us, are not that way. We're introverted, or we're not as likely to have that behavioral style. So how do you drive change and get it accepted to 100%? Or at least hopefully 90% of your employees? What makes COVID-19 change more likely to be accepted? Think about the need for changes in your organization. And we must understand the rationale behind a change if we're going to accept it. And you'll see it with the graph on my slide. Most of us accept change when we know the what and the why, the business reasons behind it, being in it together. Do you know your organization? Think about some of your experiences you've had with change, those in which your team quickly accepted it. Was it something that they helped to initiate themselves, or change that you bought into, you initiated yourself? That's usually what's different. Employees tend to, accept or embrace change when they understand the rationale, if they see that it benefits them, which means they see that the change will result in a desirable outcome for themselves and their family or the organization. If they have an opportunity to control or at least influence the change, then we all feel that we may be able to successfully implement it. If you think about what happens when people resist change, think about yourself. If change is forced on you, do you resist it? If somebody tells me, that I've got to do something, that I don't have a choice, it's really frustrating. But if you come up with you initiate yourself, it's different. If we don't understand the rationale for the change, and if we see no clear benefit from the change, or we feel we have no control over the situation, it really makes a difference in resistance or acceptance. So how a leader implements communication changes and makes a big difference in how people react to it and eventually commit to it. So here's 3 change accelerators for you that I'd like for you to think about using. Why do you think it's important to accelerate the implementation of workplace change? Well, the sooner change is implemented, especially now, time is of the essence, the sooner everyone will realize the benefits of it. Once the change is initiated, it's important to keep the momentum going. Change can cause confusion and anxiety, obviously, and lower productivity. So here are 3 ways that you can really accelerate change. You might think about these accelerators as what leaders need to do to accelerate the implementation of workplace change and focus on how you can use them to drive change. It's important to note that these accelerators are not necessarily sequential. So you'll want to look at change and describe what's changing and why. Over-communicate it. Seek reactions and feelings by asking open-ended questions. And then we're going to talk about how to regain a sense of control in just a moment. In order to describe what's changing and why, I don't know if you all have heard of or seen these key principles, but when you're focusing during a crisis on strengthening relationships, these key principles, 2 specifically, are important for us to use during a change in crisis. 2 stand out. You can probably look at my graph and guess which 2 I'm talking about. Everyone needs to feel valued and to be trusted and to also be supported, but to be listened to and to be understood and to feel involved are huge for crisis. So when we're talking about strengthening personal relationships, using your empathy and involving your employees in decisions are particularly important skills for helping people work through emotions that accompany anxiety and crisis, and in workplace change for helping them regain a sense of control. You can use involvement as a great accelerator to seek reactions and feelings. You think about empathy. How many of you are good at empathy? Before the COVID crisis, we had an epidemic of non-use of empathy in many situations because we just don't have time. But it really helps us acknowledge and respond to people's reactions and feelings. If you feel like you're not an empathetic person or you're too busy to be empathetic right now, I would ask you to really think about tapping into picking up on people's emotions. If you can name someone's emotion, you're being empathetic. How are your people feeling? Asking those open-ended questions. What's a safe emotion to name? Usually frustration. A lot of us are feeling frustrated right now. And so to pick up on frustration and to name that emotion, it sounds like you're frustrated. How can I help? How can you help? Really big right now for embracing change. Identify the emotion. By identifying emotions that a person is experiencing, it really helps you respond using empathy and involvement. So change and crisis can really elicit a really big range of emotions, which can form a barrier that prevents team members from seeing true benefits. Before you can expect people to embrace change, you've got to acknowledge and respond to those personal needs. Think about how you can use these key principles as part of your strategy for helping your team move forward and move toward embracing change, right? So driving it's great. People can come across as accepting the change, but still not implement it. So you want to get out there and make sure that you listen and understand and that you're involved. You know who makes the best friend? Think about your best friend. What do? They listen to you. Listening is a skill. It's an art. And in times of crisis, it's all the more important because most of us feel we get caught up in fear and anxiety and we don't feel listened to. So just tapping into your employees and your soft skills and personal needs and key principles can really be huge. And here's a way to do it. Change accelerators are, remember we talked about those 3? You're going to use those key principles to ask yourself questions. If you're going to describe to employees and customers what's changing and why, here's a plan. Do you all agree that if you have a plan, things turn out better? Absolutely. So describe what's happening and why. You may think about the same question for each one of these. What additional information might you need to describe the rationale for the benefits of the change? Whom can you contact to gather more information? Who are your skilled players that can help to communicate? We all know who those are. Or if we don't, we need to find out. How will I know whether I've been successful with describing what's happening and why? You're going to look for reactions. How will you measure the results of your application? And then the same is true for seeking reactions and feelings. So the goal here is to sit and think through these 3 accelerators and how you're going to help your employees by answering these questions before you share. All of us have difficulty in change. So what's your change IQ? Albert Einstein says the measure of intelligence is the ability to change. When we look at change, and when I talk about change, I like to look at the change reaction continuum. It's important to understand how people might react to change, then respond to it in a way that helps them move forward. Focusing on some common reactions, then focusing on how you and your team members may react to change and what you can do to respond and not react to it. All of us are in a different place. For example, I resisted this change. I had a plane ticket. I'm supposed to fly out today. I've been going to the grocery store in the past. I wanted to go to the office. I'm missing my clients. I wanted to go see clients. But looking at my journey, I've moved from resisting to kind of observing and seeing what's going on, to accommodating, and now embracing. We all realize, and mostly from my leaders that have reached out to us and kept us together as a team. I canceled my plane tickets this week, which I knew I was going to do it anyway. But just to say that all of us are usually in between resisting and observing, or accommodating and embracing. So just keep in mind that your employees are somewhere on this continuum, and even if they're embracing today, tomorrow they may be back to resisting. And so you've got to keep in touch with your employee. Will everybody embrace this change 100%? No. The goal is to help your team members move towards embracing by being in touch with them and talking with them as often as you can. Your customers as well. All right, so failure is a great opportunity. And I found this interesting from Inc.com, the top 5 reasons small businesses fail. And look at the highlighted one there, failing to adapt and grow when the market changes. Think about using those change accelerators that we talked about. When people experience change that they haven't initiated or perceived, the magnitude can make them feel powerless and even question the value of the work that they do. Have you seen the circle of control? Some of you that may be an influence may be familiar with Covey. I just wanted to throw this back out at you because I think it's important to remember and to maybe go through this exercise with your employees to take stickies and write down what you can control right now. Think about yourself. What are some things under your control or some things that aren't under your control? And you'll start with the things that you can't control. And you take those, put those on that sticky, have everybody do it, write it down. And then come back to what influences you can have over what you can control. And list those 3 out separately. Once you get those 3 listed out and you talk through them, have yourself in your mind go and rip up that no control sticky. I mean, just tear it into a million pieces. Right? Because those things that we have no control over, we can't do anything about. The impression that you'll make on your employees, letting them go through this exercise and rip up that no control sticky, gives you freedom to focus on what you can control and what you can influence, so that that yellow sticky of no control gets smaller and smaller. Fun exercise to do, even to open up one of your virtual meetings with, and to put your own spin on it. So it's a great process to take them through that will really help you to get to what you can do and to focus on that. Okay. So also during this time, we're all jumping onto virtual meetings. And I would say that a lot of organizations aren't accustomed to doing this. So following the KISS rule and keeping it simple, it may mean more meetings. Just because you've got the ability to do it doesn't mean that you're going to stay on all day. In our face-to-face environments, and long meetings are sometimes a reality. I wouldn't come and meet with you if we were having coffee like this, right? It's really nice to show your face and get your organization used to doing that if they will. I still have a lot of virtual meetings where some people aren't showing their face, and it's so nice to see you. So keeping it simple, keeping it short, being forgiving, and giving people the opportunity to stop staring at the screen as well is huge. So crisis equals opportunity. right? And we want to make sure that we don't fail to adapt when the market changes and grow. And within the top 5 reasons that small businesses fail, boy, we're right in the middle of that tipping point right now. So we want to make sure that we offer these opportunities to our employees. And one of the things you want to do is have resources readily available. Here's an example of a curriculum that you might put out there for your employees. We spend a lot of time creating development plans for employees right now so that they can really have something to focus on and come out on the other side with a new skill. A lot of us are learning how to go virtual and surviving to brag about it. Where are some areas that you need? People need to know how to run Zoom meetings or whatever platform you use. So it's funny. A lot of jokes and a lot of good times are out there right now. Virtually a meeting, really a meeting, but virtual. And a couple last things to share with you. This isn't so bad after all. Rock stars are going to emerge from this. We've got less square footage maybe financially. Virtually, is our new normal. Virtual's our new normal. People are having virtual happy hours and virtual coffee hours. Share your highs and lows with your employees. Find answers and resources when you don't know. Be vulnerable. Say you don't know. Ask people to get involved and help you. Life's still happening and we're still producing a result. We need to see people. That's huge. Being able to see all your nice faces today is wonderful. How can you reach more people? And for you, what software can you put out there? What technology do you get to track and manage and help people? Find new and creative ways to deliver more services. Don't let this paralyze you as a business. Look for points of inflection that you can shore up your foundation so you can build an even more amazingly resilient organization. I love this quote. It really helps us with some of today's obstacles are really opportunities. Even Amazon has got a challenge in hiring and training. But the man who knows how will always have a job. The man who knows why will always be his boss. Love that by Emerson. So while everyone else waits for tomorrow, leaders and entrepreneurs act in the moment. At this critical juncture in our world, we must focus on and navigate through the next 60 days, the next 60 to 90 days, the next 2 weeks. It's critical for survival. It's go time, y'all. We must be ready for the new reality from this point forward. So prepare for immediate and tremendous upswings, big ideas and innovation. Amazing companies and brands have been born as a result of past disruption. What are you going to do? Are you ready? How will you transform your organization and create winning cultures? And if you've got those core values, now is when you are really relying on them. If you don't, you reach out and let a consultant help you create them. So as you ponder, these times, now's the time to demonstrate hero leadership and a hero mentality. There's some tough decisions ahead that won't be easy. There's also some amazing things that will come from COVID-19. So I encourage you to navigate the financial impact, of course, and to get out there and tap into that human component to help you survive and get to the other side. And lastly, just for fun, right? I thought that was a great way to remember to really scrub up. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm going to turn it back over to Robert.
Well, Beth, thank you so much for your time. I really hope everybody can see why I opened up with Beth being such a fantastic presenter. She's an excellent example of how Insperity differentiates ourselves from other PEOs. She spends her day wholly focused on how to strategize for her clients so they can run better, grow faster, and make more money. That's what we do for our client base. So I think that's amazing. I'm really happy to be able to share that and proud of the work that Beth is doing. So let's go ahead and pass it over to the Slido now. So Beth, I'm going to read these off. And for anybody who hasn't submitted questions, please go to Slido. It's 4708 is the meeting code. I'll be refreshing after each question. So if you enter anything now, I should be able to get to it before our time is up in 17 minutes or so. I have to say I'm incredibly encouraged by these questions, Beth. It's amazing to know that business leaders in our community are concerned about things like this. The first couple questions I see are about employee engagement and anxiety. So it says, I have some key employees who are struggling with anxiety and worry that they could bring others down. How can I address this and make sure they feel safe? I love that last part. It's similar to another question that says, how can we engage employees when they're dealing with extra stress and anxiety? What would your advice be there?
I would say that you need to talk with them and tap into their emotions and find out where their biggest struggles are. And then also provide them with development during this time. Make sure that they understand what it is that you've tasked them to do so that they know because we want to encourage them to feel accomplished during this time too. So they need to feel like they're contributing, using those key principles of listening to them and making sure that they feel involved in a solution. They're looking to you for a solution. They're the boots on the ground. They're the experts. And so to tap into them and maybe get a conversation going with the team so that we can say, hey, we're meeting today to talk about how to best handle our clients. You may pick the subject as their leader, but let them brainstorm and contribute ways to solve. When people are involved, they're much more likely to be successful and come out on the other side of a change as feeling like a driver of that change. Instead of the change being done to them, they're a part of driving successful change.
Sure. Awesome. I have a question on frequency of contact. So do you have any best practices for the frequency of contact? Is daily too much for weekly one-on-ones? What do you think as far as team gatherings versus one-on-one gatherings?
Well, depending on your organization, some organizations, like if you've got a leader and they're responsible for 5 people or 10 people or 20 people, it's gonna only be it's going to be different for each person. But you certainly need to, if you've got a virtual ability to have meetings with your teams, just make sure that there are regular touch points. If it's Tuesdays at 2, or Thursdays at 3, something that's catchy and something that's on the calendar. And then give grace and be flexible, because everyone may be able to attend. Some people may not be. So grace and flexibility are huge, and continuity and consistency. So that the more you can have consistency and continuity, the more security you breed. So put those meetings out there, but don't overdo it. So I would say, and be consistent from week to week, how you do it.
Okay. Those things where you just have faith in humanity. Again, this question, another example. I have 2 employees who are dealing with family members who are sick. How can I rally the rest of our team to support them?
Yeah, and this is that grace place, right? And what you may find is if you are meeting virtually, you start to have more empathy for what people are experiencing, because you see in the background the kids trying to do school, meetings being interrupted. And I think that the more in touch you are with one another and the more empathy, remember, whatever you model, your employees, just like parent-child relationship, not that our employees are children, but we model what we see our leaders doing. So if you are modeling empathy, it's contagious, right? And so the kindness and the caring that you give to your employees, and the more human contact that you have, the more the reality of kindness will set in.
Understood. Okay. On the topic of working with customers right now, I have several customers worried about their own businesses. How can I have conversations that are productive but don't come across as I am just asking for money?
Right. And so check in with them. Just when you check in with them, don't ask for money if you feel like they don't have it. Extend grace. Remember, the goal is to get through this to the other side with your customers intact. So ask them. Those open-ended questions are huge. That involvement principle that we talked about, ask them what they need. Reach out to see how they're doing. Ask how their family is. And start your conversations in those ways so that the relationship is what's going to hold your customers to you and bond your customers to you. It's not going to be, the financial piece of it right now. It's going to be the relationships that hold those customers through. And so I would encourage you to just do what you need to do to keep those customers, your customers, until we get to the other side of this.
Gotcha. So similar, but a different side of the business. How can I work with my investors when they are nervous about the crisis?
Yeah. Yes, that's a great question. And if the way that I look at it is from the relationship piece, and that is whenever you're in change, one of the best things you can do is over communicate. And so what you need to do is over communicate the change instead of shying away from it and not communicating about it. Get them talking, and tell the truth. Be honest. Remember that kind is clear, unclear is unkind. And so clear is kind. And so be clear, be honest, be upfront, and talk about what you're doing. We're all in disaster recovery. This is the great equalizer. You're feeling what they're feeling. And so to be in relationship and over communicate for relationship sake is key.
Okay. So, knock on wood here. Hopefully this doesn't happen, but if this continues past April, May, and the impact is greater than expected, there will be more layoffs. So do you have any input on best practices for communicating layoffs to employees who weren't laid off? Obviously, there can be some big morale problems there. So any input there?
I would suggest, and this is what, whenever I teach courses and HR questions come up, I'm always told to please refer to your HR specialist. And I think you really need to look at the legalities first, right? And then the second piece of that is you're beginning with the end in mind, and you're thinking, we want to bring our good people back. And so when you communicate from the heart. After you've established the rules you need to follow from an HR standpoint, communicate from the heart and start there so that people know that this breaks your heart and that your feelings, be vulnerable, share your emotions and your feelings with your organization and with people that you care about. Rehearse it as well with someone that you trust, with your mentor, so that you know that you're coming across with the right emotions that tap into how you feel and care for your employees.
I like that. Be vulnerable. I'm going to go ahead and refresh one more time here and see if we have any new questions. I think that was the last one. While I'm checking here, I want to let everybody know that we're going to follow up with some resources. We have some fantastic resources as a company. You might not know if you weren't there last week, but we actually did a full webinar specifically on the CARES Act, and all the intricate details, had some amazing questions, a lot of detail, and we'd be happy to share that with you. But we will follow up with my contact information as well for any other further questions. That's the last question we have. Bets, thanks again. We really appreciate your time. It's so great to hear from you and to have some amazing input on the why and the how, and not necessarily the what. It's such a hard topic, so we really appreciate your input there and your expertise.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Robert, and thank you, Bets. This was a very informative discussion today, and I know I took a lot of notes, and it was very helpful to me. We will be sharing a video of this on our blog, and Robert, great that you point out last week, we have that on the ATC blog as well, and happy to connect you with this team at Insperity. If you have any further questions or you need some more information, you can email ATC employees at info@austintechnologycouncil.org. Again, that is info@austintechnologycouncil.org, and we will get your information out to them and get you connected with the team at Insperity. We will be keeping the Slido open for the next 45 minutes. So if another question comes to you and you'd like to get an answer to that, we can get that out to the team and get an answer to them, as well as we will be providing an FAQ in the next couple of days on any of the answers that we did not get to for the questions that were in Slido today. We are so pleased to continue to do this program with Insperity and are thankful for Starlee for this. We'll be back again next Thursday. But next Wednesday, we are very excited to be working with Intry again, and we'll be having another program around hiring and job searching right now. And next Wednesday evening, for those of you out there on the job market right now who are looking for your next role, we are going to be having a hiring virtual roundtable with eBay. So details will be coming out about that very soon on our calendar. And please make sure that you're getting signed up for that if you're currently looking for a job. If you are not currently looking for a job, but you know someone that is, please get that information out to them as well. We look forward to seeing all of you as soon as this is cleared up in person, but we hope that you're able to continue to join us during these midday opportunities to connect and support each other. We want to thank you for your time today and for logging on, and we just want to remind you, like Beth's last slide said, make sure you are washing your hands. And if you have the opportunity to get a mask and to be able to use that outside, at this point, it's not so much about you not contracting it, it's about possibly being asymptomatic and being able to pass it along to someone else. So if you have the ability to get a mask, please do so. Please use it and wash your hands and make sure you're taking care of yourselves, your employees,